Hi, and thanks for visiting the BarkOrBite blog. Today we're checking out the new Sumpple S631 720p network video camera, so stay tuned. Let's go ahead and unbox it to find out what's included. As I'm taking everything out of the box, I can see that lots of care was taken to properly pack everything and to secure the contents for shipping. Here's the camera itself. It's all metal and it's actually pretty heavy. This is a wireless camera, but you have to set it up as a wired camera first. I'll explain more about that later. For some reason, they put the reset button on this breakout cable instead of on the camera body itself. Here's the mount. And this is the power supply. They sent a pretty short Ethernet cable. It doesn't matter though because it'll only be used for initial setup. Here's the antenna. It just screws on the back. It really couldn't be any easier. And that's it for the camera itself. Let me move this box out of the way and straighten everything up so we can get a better look at everything. Okay, let's take a closer look at this mount. It appears to be all metal and very heavy, just like the camera. It has a standard 1/4 thread, so you can basically mount this camera anywhere you want. Here's the software. Unfortunately, it only comes on one of these small CD-ROMs. Here's the quick start guide and some miscellaneous paperwork, by the way. Now, back to that CD. Most newer computers don't have the capability to read these, but that's okay because we won't be using it anyway. If you do want to use the software, you should download it from Sumple's website to ensure you get the latest version. Here's one last look at what you should have in your box. Okay, remember, even though this is a wireless camera, in order to set it up to work wirelessly, we have to plug it into the network first. Pretty much every network camera works this way, by the way. So here's the camera, its breakout cable, and the power supply in the equipment room where we'll be plugging the camera into the network. First, let's plug in the power. Notice there is a blue light on the front of the camera. Next, let's plug in the Ethernet cable. Now the blue light has started to flash and the green light next to the network port is on too. Now let's plug in the other end into our router. That's all there is to it. The blue light should stop flashing and turn off now if everything is installed correctly. The rest of the setup is on the computer, so let's get to it. In order to complete the setup and use the camera, we have to find its IP address. I found the easiest way to do that is to visit your router's homepage and find it from there. Once logged into your router, you should see an icon or link to view all of the devices on your network. Mine is simply titled Network. Once you click on Network, you will be able to find out the camera's IP address in one of two simple ways. First, the newest device, in this case the camera, almost always has the highest IP address. The other way is by simple process of elimination. Once you either know the IP address of the camera or have one you want to try, open a new tab or browser window and simply type the IP address in just as if you were visiting any other website. The default username and password for this camera is admin for the username and Sumpple for the password. I recommend you change this to something much more secure as soon as you log in. Once you're logged into the camera, you can set the OSD color. I've changed mine to yellow because it's easier to read. If you're in the USA, this is where you will pick 60 Hz, or if the camera will be mounted outside, select outside. You can also change the picture settings on this page. Click the gear to enter setup. The first thing you should do is change your username and password. Then set your time. I'm on Eastern Standard Time, so I'll select GMT -5. After saving your time and date settings, click Network Settings, then click IP. Make a note of the ports on this screen, as some software will call for this information. Next, click Wireless, then click Search. Make sure there's a check mark in Enable Wi-Fi. Once your network is found, select it, and if you have a password on your wireless network, click Encryption, enter your info, then click Save. Once you click Save, the device will reboot. Let's fast forward this. Let's click Wireless Settings one more time just to make sure everything's saved. Now, if you want to set up email alerts, click Email. I have a Gmail account, so I'll show you how to set that up. Make sure there is a check mark in Enable Email. Enter your name, sender email address, and receiver email address. In this case, it's all the same for me since I want to send myself notification alerts. Then, if you are using Gmail, enter smtp.gmail.com and put a check mark in SSL connection. Next, type 465 for the port, but note this is for Gmail only. If you are using a different type of email account, you must search for which port to use for that account. Finally, put a check in Auth User and enter your email address and password for your email account. Click Save and then click Test. Another window will pop up and will say SUCC if the test is successful. A few seconds later, you should receive an email from your camera. Okay, now you can close that window and click Video, then click Video Settings. This is where you will set up the quality of video for when you're home and for when you're away. I always set my primary stream to the highest available settings for the best picture quality. If you do this and get any lag in the video, you'll need to experiment with the settings. The secondary stream is for viewing on your cell phone or any other device when you're away from home, and I set this to very low quality so I can view it on my cell phone without any issues. Next, select whether you want the primary or secondary stream to be used when you first log into the camera. I always use primary for the best quality. Click Save when you're finished. Now let's set up the alarm settings. Click Motion Detection and make sure it's turned on. You can then put a check mark in each relevant box for how you'd like to use the motion detection feature. I just have mine set to email me because I record from a different device. If you want to record straight to the camera though, you can do that as long as you have an SD card installed. Just put a check in SD card record. If you don't select a schedule, then Motion Detect will be on 24/7. If you only want to be alerted on certain days or at certain times, then you can enable the schedule and set it up to your liking. There's one thing I don't like about this camera. On most all other network cameras, you are able to set the area for motion detection. With this camera, it's all or nothing. I wish it had that missing feature so I can pick which parts of the image I'm alerted to when motion is detected. I also don't like the sensitivity setting. You can only select from low, medium, and high. Almost all other cameras let you set the threshold and sensitivity on a sliding scale with many possibilities. When finished with these settings, click Save, then go to System and click on Auto Maintain. If enabled, all this does is allows you to pick a time of day when the camera will be automatically rebooted to make sure it's always working properly. After setting this to your preferences, click Save. Finally, let's check out the System menu. This is where you can manually reboot the camera at any time. You can also upgrade the firmware from here, and last but not least, you can reset everything back to the factory default settings if you want to. Now let's look at the status again. Click Status, then Device Info. This is where you can change the name of the camera. I'm going to change mine to Equipment Room, since that's where the camera is installed. After you change the name, click Save one more time and we're finished. Click on the picture of a camera to exit setup and see the live view. Remember, you can change the video settings from this screen and make sure you set the frequency correctly too. 50 Hz if you're in Europe, 60 Hz if you're in the US, and outdoor if the camera will be mounted outside. Depending on where and how you mount the camera, you may need to use either the mirror or flip function, or maybe even both. The only thing that's left now is to unplug the network cable from the camera so it can connect wirelessly, and then see what the new IP address is. So let's log back into our router and look at the list of network devices again. Looking through the list of wireless IP addresses, I see 192.168.1.64 has now shown up on the list, and 192.168.1.63 is gone, so I'm sure this is the new IP address. Let's look just to make sure. There you go. The camera now works wirelessly, and we know the IP address in case any software we install might ask for it. Overall, this has been a super easy installation with no quirks or bugs. The camera feels very heavy duty and tough. It's all metal and feels like it will last a lifetime. I'm really impressed at the quality to price ratio. The only other thing I don't like about the camera, besides the lack of options with the motion detection settings, is the breakout cable and how large it is. They could have easily put the reset button on the camera itself to make this bundle of cables smaller and easier to manage. Either way, since it's an outdoor camera, they should have provided a junction box like Filink does for their cameras. That way these cables and everything connected to them would be weatherproof and last much longer. I do wish they made a 1080p version too, and I also wish this camera worked via Power over Ethernet or PoE, because it's a lot easier to run a network cable wherever it needs to go than it is to find a place to plug the camera in outside, or to extend the power cable and fish it through an exterior wall to plug it in inside. This is a really nice camera, and I'm extremely happy with it. The price is great too. This is a solid 4.5-star camera, and I highly recommend it. It's definitely not all bark and no bite.